Thank you everyone for attending us today from all over the United States, I see. I want to thank every one of the panelists that are here today. I will briefly introduce Ms. Potts in a few minutes. I do have my colleagues on the call as well, Mr. Curtis Brandon and Mr. Norman Seeley. Thank you. They will be assisting me as throughout the presentation with any questions or chats. Any questions or comments that you guys have. As a reminder, during our sessions, it makes it easier for us to be able to track your questions to ensure that we don't miss anything during the live session. If you place your questions in the Q&A, just a brief overview for anybody that's new or might have forgotten. If you are on your laptop, if you click on the three dots to your right, the Q&A will pop up for you if you are currently on your mobile device. If you look over to the right, there should be three dots. When you click on those three dots, there are two tabs. Click on the tab that says Advanced and scroll all the way down to the bottom, and that's where you will find the Q&A. Otherwise, you'll always see the chat. Going ahead to get started, this presentation will be sent out to everyone, including the recording, by tomorrow morning, approximately around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. You will receive a copy of this presentation, including where the recording is located. Now, to start off, the participation of any commercial entities in VA outreach and training programs does not convey or imply that the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs directly or indirectly endorses any product or service provided or to be provided by the commercial entity, its successors, assignees, or licensees. Furthermore, the Department of Veteran Affairs does not warrant any services that may be provided by the commercial organizations listed. What we will cover today is request for proposal. Ms. Potts will go in an in-depth review of request for proposals, also discuss teaming arrangements, how those type of partnerships can help your business to increase its competitiveness in the market, as well as she's going to be providing some resources to you that you can include and use with your business as you continue on this journey as it pertains to requests for proposals. So our presenter today, is Ms. Potts, and she has over 20 plus years of professional performance in business development, capture management, proposal management, and positions as the volume lead, senior proposal writer, solutions architect, editor, and price analyst. Her experience was in the business development and proposal management space for federal, commercial, state, local, and education procurement contracts for professional services. She currently provides business advisory and federal procurement support and training services. She also advises on procurement processes and techniques that support win at the highest level of government contracting. Gina, thank you for being here with us today. Now I am going to turn it over to you to discuss requests for proposals.
Thank you, Wendy, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, 300 attendees. That's fantastic. I am so happy to be presenting this information to the VA community. I am the daughter of a retired Air Force veteran. I am the ex-wife of a retired Air Force veteran. I worked civil service for the Air Force for 16 years. And then I've been going out into the federal, ventured out into the federal contracting space, let's say about 2004, and kind of began that portion of my career in which I've developed and have gotten to the point where I consider myself an expert. So again, I appreciate you all attending. And one of my goals was when I actually developed an RFP manual based on lessons learned, past performance, information that I've learned over what I would say nearly 40 years experience with the government. And I've kind of compilated everything. And within the RFP process, of course, it was all in text format. But I'm going to present this to you, and I'm presenting to you all in bullet format so that you can retain as much information as you can And within those formats, you're going to find that there are just a lot of things that you're not going to be able to gather or ascertain from anywhere else unless you've been there and done that. So I'm hoping that you guys find my background with the Department of Defense helpful, and the information that I present will be unique. And, you know, how do I say, I think with veterans experience, I always tell people that my DoD experience is the reason why I was able to parlay into this career so easily. It was because I worked in multiple environments within the DoD. And so I have had a full and complete understanding of specifically IT, because that was where I primarily worked, but IT, education, training, maintenance, professional services. I pretty much finance, civilian personnel, contracting. I pretty much worked in all of those environments and or supported those environments. So I have a really good and rich history with that. So what makes me an expert? Well, I'm going to say it's my cradle to grave experience. And since I've been supporting government contracts, I work business marketing, which would be business development, client development, chapter manager, proposal manager, technical writer, technical architect, pricing manager, contract manager, and I have extensive knowledge of the FAR, DCA, and cost accounting standard requirements. So that is what I would say makes me an expert in this field. Next slide. Okay. The information will provide knowledge and understanding of the proposal development processes required for government proposal response management. Training is structured to enable high growth potential for small business firms to compete more effectively for federal, state, and local government contracts and grants. Next slide. What's an RFP? A request for a proposal is a document that solicits a proposal, often made through a bidding process by an agency or company interested in procurement of a commodity, service, or asset to potential suppliers to submit business proposals. The bidder may have the opportunity to change pricing or technical requirements. Once the government agency signs the appropriate form, the contract becomes binding. An RFP response is a vendor's answer to a set of questions posed by a prospective buyer. In a complex competitive purchasing process, customers demand a compelling argument from vendors before they are willing to sign off on what often a multi-year contract, typically 3 or 4 years. Next slide. And to piggyback off of that, that's an RFP. Currently, it appears that the government is moving toward what are called multiple award schedules, GWECs, IDIQs, BPAs. And a lot of those are replacing what typically would have come out as an RFP. So previously was the definition of an RFP with a multiple award schedule, GWEC, MAS, IDIQ, etc. A lot of the requirements are for, how to say it, kind of circumvents the need for a full RFP if you have one of the schedules, because you're able to kind of gather the information initially in the initial contract that you want that you would have typically put out in an RFP. You gather that information initially, and then from that point, with your winning bidders, you have what would be task order contracts. And the task order contracts are a bit are not as time consuming. You're competing with other contractors who are on the contracts. Or on the contract, it's not an open bid, and it's making the process a lot easier and smoother for the government. So again, years ago, everything came out as an RFP. There seems to be a little bit of a lull to that in recent years. So to respond or not to respond, it may seem like more RFPs you respond to, the better your chances at winning contracts like the lottery. The best strategy for writing a response for an RFP is to find the right fit and concentrate on the contracts that are a good fit for your company's business focus. Passing up on opportunities that sort of fit your company's business focus will free up your time to pursue opportunities that are better suited for your business. So again, you want to be, when you're reviewing these RFPs, they really need to be targeted toward your core service products or services. So product or services. So further on bid or no bid decision. Next slide. When pursuing government contracts, projects, you need to weigh your options closely before you begin writing a response for an RFP. If part of the contract doesn't match your company's best interest or you can't deliver on part of the contract, the smartest move may be to concentrate your resources elsewhere. So what types of questions should you ask yourself when deciding on writing a response for an RFP? I'm going to give you the top 5. I have a template or worksheet where I ask about 30 questions when I'm evaluating an RFP. But the top 5 questions that I find are you able to make a reasonable profit? Is number 1. Does it make sense? 2, do you have proven experience and past performance for each of the service requirements? Products would be included as well. Do you have past performance in selling the products? Do you meet the set-aside restrictions established for the procurement? You always want to check that. Do you possess or have access to adequate resources to perform the contract successfully if it's awarded to you? And that could be finance, that could be contractors, that could be a teaming partner who might be able to meet a support need that you are unable to. So all of those questions need to be answered. And then how knowledgeable are you about the procurement and the customer agency? Having prior experience with and or of the procurement agency is vital. Those who understand the environment tend to do better. So if you have an understanding that in a particular, the area that you're pursuing, you know the incumbent contractor, and you know that there are issues in that environment, and you know that there is something that you can do to meet the government's need or answer that solution better, that's a good position to be in when you're going after a contract.
Hey, Gina, I just want to stop you for 1 second, and I want to check in with the audience. I'm seeing from a few people that you are not seeing your slides. In the chat, if you could just let me know if you are able to see the slides. We are currently on the slide where it says top 5 bid, no bid questions to answers. Okay, perfect. Okay, they are. All right, thank you, everyone. All right, I'll pass it back over to you, Gina, and I'll move on to the next slide.
Great. Further on the bid, no bid decision. In the go or no-go decision-making process, there are additional considerations to factor in. Is the requested project response an RFP or an RFI? If the project is an RFP, the government is looking to buy. However, if it's an RFI, the government is requesting information about the market for the service or product. It's possible that an RFI will turn into an RFP, so you can consider responding if your product or service sets itself apart from the market. However, the government will use the RFI information to put together a proposal, a full-blown RFP proposal, and your RFP response may play an important part. So with that, don't give away your secrets at this time. Mark any information private, confidential, proprietary, and otherwise the government will see fit to use that RFI information with another vendor. And oftentimes or sometimes an RFI request may be put out there when the government feels that they may have someone in, let's say an incumbent contractor or someone in line that they think that they are considering having, going through with a direct award. So if they don't get any response to the RFI, if they don't get additional response to the RFI, they can kind of use the lack of response or the lack of proper response to justify a direct award to another contractor. So you really want to kind of evaluate the RFIs thoroughly before you decide either to respond to one or not to respond to one. The stronger, you feel about your capabilities, it might warrant presenting your past performance, but providing any new approaches or methodologies that the government might want to consider in your RFI response is probably not a good idea. Next slide. If you find an RFP that is a good match for your company, but it seems like it's been written with a specific company in mind, consider writing a response for the RFP anyway. And that's kind of going into what I was saying before. When you demonstrate in your RFP the information that you can offer and tack on extra benefits, value add, lower price guarantee, etc., things like that, you will have a good chance of winning. And again, that's it. That's within the RFP. None of that should be submitted to any great detail in an RFI before you get to the RFP. Next. Okay. And then the RFP schedule. And I just kind of I've received an email from the SBA, and I know this week they are doing some courses all week actually, and one of them is somewhat of what they call an RFP solicitation course, and then they go specific, and then on 3 other days they go specifically into the proposals. So they are covering the technical proposals, the price proposals, and past performance within the RFP. So those are areas that we're going to cover kind of lightly today. You know, in the future, we'll have more, there may be more extended opportunities to learn the details. But I do know that the government is presenting that this week. So if anybody's, I'm sorry, the SBA is presenting that this week. So if anyone has any interest in what they have to offer, that would be something to look in as well. Okay, so the RFP solicitation. Although an RFP is a sign that the government is looking to buy, it doesn't necessarily mean that the funds for the projects are available. Without funding, you may put a lot of time and effort into writing a response for an RFP when nothing can come of it. During the questions period, ask the contracting officer if the project is funded. If you're given, or ascertain from, you can oftentimes ascertain from the RFP whether or not it's funded. And whether or not there are incumbent contractors and such, or follow-on contracts, so you know that it is funded. And if you're given RFP information indicating that there's a reserve fund for the project, there is still no guarantee that you will see a contract. If a priority need arises, the government has the right to reallocate the funding to the prioritized project. So you really want to ensure that you learn how how serious the government is, or how the government is about putting that contract out, and if it is prepared for funding, or posed for funding. Next slide. So the RFP sections, so A through M of the RFP. So you can see that they are there's A through M. So what I would consider the major components of the RFP that you want to review initially, just an initial overview of the solicitation you're deciding on whether or not you want to review, would be A, C, H, L, and M. And A, the solicitation and contract form, information to offerors, cover page. C, description, specifications, statement of work. H, special contract requirements. L, instructions, conditions, and notices to offerors. And M, evaluation factors for award. And again, before once I decide that I'm going to pursue something, all of A through M is crucial, because all of that is going to be needed when you're trying to prepare a winning RFP response. But just in the decision making, A, C, H, L, and M are areas that you really want to own in on. A. So section A, it'll have solicitation and contract form, information to offers, and then sometimes you'll see a cover page. And the RFP section C is going to be this description, statement of work, performance work statement, however they put it. I think one is Army, and it depends on whether it's an agency or DOD, whether it's called a statement of work or a PWS. RFP in sections A through L are the instructions, conditions, and notices to offers. and Section H, special contract requirements. So on the SF 1449, the quick key questions that you want to answer is my company eligible? And you'll find that on the solicitation item 10. What is the deadline? And you'll find that on item 8, response due date, tentative response due date in many cases, but that is very relevant. Next slide. And then the statement of work. From reviewing the statement of work, you can ascertain whether or not you need a subcontractor or a teaming partner required to provide this services. So within that, you want to, evaluate what the services are, what the deliverables are, and what the timeline and milestones are projected to be for the RFP. In Section L. This section provides guidance for preparing proposals and specific instructions on the required format and content. To ensure timely and equitable proposal evaluation, offerers shall propose in accordance with the section and all solicitation requirements. Non-conformance with the instructions provided in this section or the requirements and statements of the solicitation may result in an unfavorable evaluation or proposal disqualification for non-responsive to the solicitation requirement. And I have worked with many contractors who have spent months preparing a RFP or a MAS or a GWAC, and they did not follow the Section L instructions, and they're trying to figure out why they didn't get any response back from the government on their submission. And that is because of Section L, the instructions. If you don't follow the instructions to the T, this is disqualification. So without notification, your submission can be disqualified from the contract, and the government really doesn't owe you any explanation as to the disqualification, because had you followed the instructions, you would know exactly why you're disqualified. So the instructions are, again, it's in the top 5. You absolutely want to follow the instructions to the T. Dot every I and cross every T. Next. And then key questions for Section L. Again, can we meet all the requirements? Do I have the past performance? And do I have the key personnel? Next. Section A, general information. This section often consists solely of a one-page solicitation form. The form gives basic information about the project. Here you will find where and when to submit your bid, contact information for the agency, and the solicitation number. And likely the question and answer period would be included there as well. And of course, you definitely want to take advantage of that to gain clarification. Section A also serves as a sort of table of contents for the rest of the RFP. In addition to the solicitation form, the general information sections might include other project information, such as incumbent contractors or special instructions for the rest of the RFP. As you continue to read the RFP, if you're not sure why something was included or if something seems unclear, refer to the general information section to see if further explanation is offered. Next slide. Implementing a winning proposal strategy. You want to track these opportunities before they are announced, and which goes into, if which would be a typical capture and management role. I tend to see capture management, capture as capture, BD, and proposal management as one role. You have to have knowledge of or input in those 3 areas in order to develop a winning proposal strategy. So you want to track the opportunities before they are announced and identify future opportunities for services and locations that are a good match for your company's experience and capabilities. Under the FOIA, request information such as the incumbent contractor's name, pricing, copy of current contract, amendments to the contract, and other contract discrepancy reports, CDRs, issues to the current contractor. So, you know, you can request all of this information. It's up to the government's discretion how much they can provide, but it's definitely something that you can request, and you're oftentimes provided that. And oftentimes in the question and answer period, you can get this information answered there, and you don't have to go through the FOIA. Keep your experience and past performance information updated and maintain current resumes of your key personnel. Pay attention to the site visit, pre-proposal conference, and get to know your competitors. And that's also Q&A. You're gonna get to know your competitors through that means. And then the most valuable resource that I've always used to get to know my competitors are what kind of questions are being asked in the Q&A period. And if I see a bunch of elementary questions that had someone read the RFP, they would know, and they wouldn't have to ask the contracting officer. And I know because I've actually worked as an administrator with contracting officers, and when questions would come in, one gets to be a little bit exasperated when they're thinking, okay, it's right there in the RFP. So you definitely want to take advantage of the Q&A period. But before you ask a question, ensure that the answer is not already in the RFP. And two, you kind of, if some of the questions that you might ask might tend to suggest that you might be a little bit green to this business. So you want to be careful about what you ask, but you want to thoroughly review the Q&As that come out and find out what other contractors are asking, because that's where you're going to get your advantage, I think. Next slide. Supplies or services, price and costs. The bulk of your proposal lies within your responses to the sections and to the statement of work, section C. The supplies or services and price cost section is a line-by-line list of billable items, also known as contract line item numbers. And this, of course, is your price proposal. These line items will include labor, supplies, and other billable items such as travel and expenses. The section will also specify the pricing structure for the contract. So specifically in a fixed price contract, the price you quote in your proposal should include all expenses and be final. You'll be held to it if you're awarded the contract. So most contracts are fixed price contracts, maybe time and materials contracts, but for the most part, I think you'll be dealing with fixed price contracts. So again, you want to, you want to be very, very thorough and careful when it comes to contract pricing. And there are pricing, how do I say, the typical pricing considerations that need to be made in the price proposal that, that would be typical. If there's something additional that the government is asking, outside of the norm, again, outside of the norm, then you would want to, there may be other non-typical price proposal considerations that you would have to put in your proposal, but pretty much it's basic. And just kind of quickly, your rate, your G&A, your overhead, your profit, whether or not there's any of course your fringe benefits, so on and so forth. So outside of the basics, there are contracts that require you to provide, let's say, equipment or training or some other service. So you want to ensure that all of the additional pricings that are not typical, you want to make sure that you cover those as well. In a cost plus or cost reimbursement contract, you'll be reimbursed for your expenses as contract work proceeds and receive a fee that may be fixed or based on performance. Read this section carefully to make sure you respond to the contract line item number and use the right pricing format. So if you've never, there is a correct pricing format. And then there are additional considerations. So you start with your typical pricing format, And then if there are additional considerations, that would be added to your typical pricing format. But typically, the cost price is, of course, needs to be reviewed very carefully and all considering. The government doesn't want you to pay for, how do I say it? They want you to, the RFPs are put together so that you're charging the government for the work, for everything. There's no cost that you should incur. So if there's a cost that you think that you might incur and it doesn't seem that it's asked for in the RFP, and that's one of those questions that you would say to the government, we think that this particular hardware would be needed to support this system, or and it's not included as a need in the RFP. And is this something that you consider that we could price for? And you could contact you would be able to add any cost that you would have to incur that could and should be added to the RFP response.
Thank you, Gina. I just want to pause for a second. I see that we have a huge number of participants here today. Thank you, everyone, for attending. For those that may have joined later, in the beginning, I mentioned that a copy of the presentation, including a recording of this presentation today, will be sent out to your email address that you used to register with by tomorrow morning. What I have done is, because I've received a few requests from our participants, they're not able to see, especially for those individuals that have one screen, they're not able to see the content when a lot of information is being provided in the chat. So I have removed the chat for anybody that's wondering where the chat is. The Q&A is still available for anyone that has questions. Myself and my colleague Curtis, while Gina is speaking, we are responding to those. I apologize for interrupting, Gina. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
I'm going to try to go a bit faster. So section C, description, specifications, and statement of work. This is the heart of the proposal and where you will learn what the agency runs from the contract. It's also where you will describe exactly how you plan to fulfill the contract, both with labor and supplies. This is a good place to explain your choice of materials or outline why your company's labor on this contract will provide the best value. You can, you're proposing your labor, and it might be counter to what they have with the incumbent contractor or what they anticipated, but this is where that comes into play. You'll also find that a list of roles that will be required on the project, and any details on labor conditions such as work week and security clearances. And I always tell people, the government, a lot of the RFPs are recycled year after year from contract to contract. And, technology times changes, and oftentimes within an RFP, the government may not exactly know what they want. So when you're either asking questions or you're putting together your proposal response, you want to perhaps no, what did I say? List of roles. You may want to, let's say that if it's calling for a project manager, and you think that program management would be vital to the opportunity, then that's where you would have the opportunity to either at Q&A propose a program manager over a project manager, and or give reasons why a program manager would be better suited for the opportunity. So again, nothing is set in stone. And unless the government says, okay, well, these labor categories, we've how do I say, these labor categories and the job descriptions are solid, and they typically won't say that. But if it comes through that where that there can't be any changes made, then that's not possible. But most of the time, the government wants the best response, and if your response is alternative to, let's say, the second best response, and your response is better because you propose a different kind of methodology or a process, those are the contributors to our winning proposal response. You want to kind of go above and beyond. This section, so section C, this section may include specifications for materials or detailed quality assurance plan. Or the detailed quality assurance plan you must follow. And that's going to be you're going to develop that quality assurance plan, so a detailed quality assurance plan. In the case of a cost plus contract, this section will also include the evaluation criteria that determines your fee. These factors affect your final pricing, and failure to adhere to specifications in your proposal will almost certainly cost you the contract. While reading through the statement of work, you should keep the statement of work close at hand. Agencies often include supplementary materials and appendices that make this statement of work easier to understand. So while reading through the statement of work, you want to keep, I don't know why I said that, but agencies often include supplementary material and appendices that make the statement of work easier to understand. So when you're reading the statement of work, you want to ensure that you also search within the RFP documents or attachment for supplemental information, because it's not always that all of this information is in the statement of work. Oftentimes it's included in other areas of the RFP. And I think that's the point that I was trying to make. So section D, packaging and marking. This section details how various line item numbers are to be packed, labeled, and shipped or delivered. Sometimes the information that would be in this section is rolled up into deliveries or performance, which would be section F, or contract administration data, section G. So again, I said that, there are 5 areas that you want to consider in an initial proposal, but when you're evaluating the entire RFP, from A through M, you want to make sure that you read everything thoroughly, because again, these are sometimes proposals that have been redeveloped, and oftentimes there are mistakes or omissions. So, and also ensure you factor in time it will take to deliver and how much it will cost you. If you don't remember to list these in your pricing, you'll be paying out of pocket. So the time it will take to deliver, and that really came up mostly, probably wrote this again many years ago when RFPs were delivered. And everyone was getting down to the final deadline and, having to go and mail out and UPS and, depending upon how many volumes they wanted and, how large the response was, it could be very, very costly, especially if, as most people did, were responding, trying to get it there next day or 2 day. It could be quite pricey. So, it might not be as important today to kind of have that, to look at that. But there was a time when you had to hand deliver, and it's still in some state and local government contracts, they are still hand delivered. But you definitely want to consider that, and then add that cost into your pricing. Section E, inspection and acceptance. The federal government takes steps to safeguard itself from poor quality work and materials, which is where this section comes in. This section details the conditions that must be met for the work to be accepted by the government, as well as how it is inspected. This may be as simple as a final examination by the contracting officer at the end of the contract, or it may require you to follow and document an exacting quality assurance process. This section will also include what steps can be taken if the work doesn't pass inspection. Understand the inspection requirements, and allow for time for inspection when planning to meet your deadlines. So, if section E is included, and it covers inspection and acceptance, you definitely want to review that for those reasons. This section maps out section F, deliveries or performance. This section maps out when, where, or how different line items need to be delivered. Keep the supplies or services and prices cost section really close at hand while reading this section, so you can easily refer to specific line item numbers. The deliveries or performance section is useful when drafting your project plan, as it tells you exactly when goods need to be delivered or services need to be performed. Study delivery dates closely when deciding whether to bid on the contract to ensure you have time to get it all done. Time is always an issue. No matter how large or small the business is, time is always an issue. And even though you try and prepare for it, nothing can really prepare you for that. This section maps out when, where, and did I do that? Yes. So the amount of contract administrative data contained in a specific RFP will vary depending on the type of contracts the agencies need and the agency's resources, among other things. Some topics in this section may include status reporting, accounting information, and contact information for key agency personnel. And I don't know that should be, as well as informing you and agency personnel on how you will interact during the contract. That's contract administration. Use the contract administration data to help clarify the terms of your relationship with the agency, including how you'll need to check in, what forms you'll need to submit, and how and when you'll be paid, and who your main point of contacts will be. So, I'm not really sure why this is red, but let's see. Contract administration data. What makes this section different from descriptions, statement of work, so on and so forth? The requirement in this section falls outside of the actual goods you'll deliver or services you'll perform, although it may affect them, and don't directly pertain to the administration of the contract. In a less bureaucratic world, this section would probably be titled Other Requirements. Special contract requirements is a catch-all for anything that is not covered earlier in the schedule. And that's section G. Section H. What makes this different from descriptions, specifications of work, section C, or contract administration data, section G. The requirements in this section fall outside of the actual goods you'll deliver or services you'll perform, although I think we just did that. I think this is a repeat. Can we go to the next slide? When preparing your proposal, it can be helpful to consolidate the requirements from all parts of the schedule. Your contract line item numbers, contract administration data, special contract requirements, etc., into the master list to make sure you leave nothing out. So one area may feed into another. So again, a full and complete matrix of the proposal compared to other areas need to be done as well. When preparing your proposal, it can be helpful to consolidate the requirements from all parts of the schedule. Your contract, as again, repeating your contract line item, contract administration data, special contract requirements into one master list to make sure you leave nothing out. And this is what I was just saying would be, you want to do a matrix and ensure that you're cross-referencing each of those areas, because where perhaps information should have been in section H. Typically, a mistake may have been made where it's in section G. So it's really up to, again, the contract administrator's data as to what they consider deliveries or performance or within the other areas. So you want to just kind of do the kind of double check, that, additional information can't be found in other areas. I, contract clauses, general provisions. This section contains any clauses required by law and could be a single paragraph, a large index, or left blank, depending on the contract. Even if you don't need to respond to anything from this section, don't overlook the contract clauses that you'll be bound to. And especially if it's a contract of type that you've not responded to before and you're not familiar with the contract clauses and the general provisions, you definitely want to review that section carefully so that you can know and ensure that you're in adherence with the contract requirements and what's going to be required of the contract. Section J, list of documents, exhibits, and attachments. Just as Section A is a table of contents for the rest of the RFP, Section J is a cross-reference table of contents for any appendices or supplementary materials included. Use it while responding to the description, specification, statement of work, which is Section C. Other sections of the RFP will reference various attachments and keep them accessible to help you understand the RFP. So just on that, the attachments to me, list of documents, exhibits, or attachments, almost always or will always feed into other areas of the RFP. So you definitely want to utilize Section J to your advantage. This also helps in in your response and in ensuring that you're it also helps in your response to ensure that you're kind of answering all of the government's questions and requirements. So Section J, cross-reference to the most important thing to me, the statement of work is very important in ensuring that you have a viable response, I'd say. Section K, reps and certs, statements to offers. Don't let the legalese of this section intimidate you. It lets you know how to prove to the government that you are eligible to bid on and fulfill this contract. It will ask for things including your tax information, verification that hiring and employment practices are valid, and your small or disadvantaged business status. Read this section very carefully and early on. If your company is unqualified in some way to win the contract, all the hard work and expense of preparing your proposal will be invalid. So reps and certs are very important. Of course, now your reps and certs are now in sam.gov, and you're updating those, often, so or as needed. So typically within the RFPs that are coming out, the multiple award schedules, you're able to refer to your did I say CCR? Yeah, your sam.gov registration. CCR was the old registration. Next slide. Then a little bit on the GSA schedules, just a little bit. And I use the term GSA schedule, but I would say any of the masses that are coming out now, Oasis, Evolve, all of the Polaris, a lot of this stuff is pretty much compatible with those opportunities.
Thank you, Gina. And right now, oh, I'm sorry, Gina, you were getting ready to say something?
I was going to say quickly, and as I had said previously, that's the move that from what I can see, that the government seems to kind of be parlaying away from, traditional RFPs into these multiple award schedule types.
Thank you. Before we get started, this is going to be the second part of the presentation because we do end at this session is scheduled to end at 12:30. I just want to take about 10 minutes for everyone to go step away, whether you need to go grab a cup of water or take a bathroom break before we get started on this section. Just a recap before we take a break. Gina covered all the sections of the request for proposal. Any questions that anyone has submitted, Curtis and I during the break and throughout the presentation will be responding to them. So we'll go ahead and take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back at 12 and finish up with the last part, which during this last part, Gina will cover the contracting advantages, as well as with some of the questions we received, she'll respond to she'll cover how to respond to proposals and having the library of information. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Gina, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you because I know we have 30 more minutes left and you have a few more slides to go over.
Right. I'm going to try to speed it up. I know that you guys are getting the slides, and what I attempted to do and what I'm presenting is to just kind of provide you with, I'm not going into any specific detail on anything, but provide you with what I feel are unwritten tips and pointers that I'm sure will kind of help you when you're responding to these RFPs. So, yes, I'm going to try and speed it up so that if there are any questions at the end, I might be able to get to them. And if not, you'll be able to refer to the slides. But what I'm covering is just kind of things that I've learned over time, or just the kind of tips and pointers again that you want to keep in mind. So getting the contract advantage, and we're speaking about multiple award schedules and not specifically just GSA schedules. Okay, so with the multiple award schedule contract, your competition is with those in the pre-approved space, not necessarily the millions out there on the open market. Market yourself smartly and speak the government's language. Analyze the competition and differentiate yourself in areas such as maintenance, because again, they're just looking for fill in the blank information. So you want to put your best foot forward. Return on investments, payback periods, quality, experience, patents or trademarks, green attributes, pre-approved network capacity, etc. You really want to kind of put, show off. Everything should come down. Okay. Well, I can't remember. Well, the slide's there. So everything should come down to how can I make it easy for the buyer to do business with me? So that should be your goal. Next slide. If on a GSA or agency or any other mass type BPA, IDIQ type contract, RFPs can come to you from a federal buyer, and you can skip the full process by responding to the request for quotes through the GSA eBuy system. And that request for quotes, GSA eBuy system, or on other contracts, that would be a task order contract. So you're on the schedule. Once you're on the schedule, you'll compete with others within the schedule for task order contracts. And the responses to the task order contracts are specifically not written or just too much text, but often, well, sometimes they are. Much of the times they're looking for additional technical or administrative information, but there are times when, where it said RFQ, it's rare that it's just the quote where they want a dollar number. You're typically going to have to provide additional information, but it's probably not going to be past performance or anything like that. If the agency does ask you to write an RFP, you can use much of the same information in your original solicitation to cover many of the sections, because you have already been pre-screened for competency, compliance, capacity, and your prices have already been deemed fair, reasonable, and pre-approved. Next slide. Team arrangements or subcontractor. Under a contractor team arrangement, two or more scheduled contractors, and this again, this is going across the board. I'm currently working on NASA SUIT. I've worked Polaris, Evolve, Oasis, and some of the older BPAs that are out there. So this is pretty much across the board. So under CTA, two or more scheduled contractors work together by complementing each other's capabilities to offer a total solution to meet an ordering activities requirements. If there are areas of the RFP you can't perform but you wish to sub out, choose your subcontractors wisely, as the project manager, which is the prime, is responsible for the work that they perform. It is recommended that you enter teaming arrangements with other pre-approved contract holders that can provide support for the services areas that you may lack. Next slide. Contractor teaming arrangements provide a win-win situation for both the schedule holder and the ordering activities. Scheduled contractors may compete for schedule orders for which they may not independently qualify. Ordering activities may procure a total solution rather than making separate buys for each part of a requirement, and CTAs can provide companies competitive advantage over choosing to include less qualified, non-pre-approved vendors to complete tasks with the larger RFP. So there are advantages both to the contractor and to the agency. As a small business, and that's typically mostly what I work with. I do have some larger contractor experience, but I enjoy, and my preference is a smaller business. So I would say that that's my niche. A small business might consider teaming with a prime contractor if it desires to market its products to the federal government. By teaming with an appropriate partner, a competent business could successfully compete for government business that it might not otherwise be able to obtain on its own. A teaming agreement or subcontracting agreement may also be appropriate if a prime contractor and subcontractor want to do a competitive sale of their capabilities to the government. If the subcontractor's product is vital to the overall system, it would make the teaming proposal that much more competitive. A teaming arrangement alleviates the need for the prime to enter a competition with other potential subcontractors after award of the prime contractor. So if the prime utilizes their subcontractor and that information, the subcontract information is utilized for the response, that kind of puts you ahead of the game if and when the contract is awarded.
And I just want to add to what Gina is speaking about concerning teaming arrangements or even partnering with other businesses. We do have a few trainings on our YouTube channel. So if this part of the session interests you more and you have a lot of questions concerning partnerships, please visit our YouTube channel and view the playlist partnering. And we have quite a few trainings concerning all of them: joint ventures, mentor protege program, and so forth and so on. Sorry about that, Gina, passing it back over to you.
Ruling. There was a GSA subcontracting ruling, and this is specific to GSA, but I think it's crossing over into the other masses as well. For GSA scheduled teaming solutions in 2007, a board of contract appeals decision helped subcontractors overcome difficulties. In 2000, and that would be subcontractors typically had little leverage with the agencies when had little leverage and were not considered prime within these awards. So in 2007, the Civilian Agency Board of Contract Appeals held that a member of a teaming relationship formed by two GSA scheduled contractors had privity of contract with the procuring agency, and therefore the right to file a claim directly with the agency. Other benefits included the ability to get paid directly from the government and the inability for the main prime or project manager to cut you out of the deal once the proposal has been submitted. As part of the team, the government will view work performed as direct business with the government and can help open doors when discussing past performance. So previously, the government would have no contact with subcontractors. The prime agency were contact information or contact with the prime agency was only allowed. So after 2007, with the appeal, subcontractors do have the ability to go in and have direct talk or conversation in some capacity with the government, although the prime will probably suggest strongly that that not be done. One of the advantages too of these rulings is the greatest advantage is past performance. When you're on one of these types of contracts with another company or a large business or whatever, and they are the prime, you are then able to use your performance on that contract as past performance for other contract opportunities. So I would say to me, I think the greatest benefit of it is to be able to utilize the past performance. But if you have issues with the prime, then perhaps that would be a reason why you would need to, issues with pay, let's say with the prime, or you're feeling like you're being cut out, that does give you an avenue to contact the agency, but it's not advised. You can typically work things out with the prime, but as far as, again, past performance, being able to kind of utilize that team or that prime's experience with future past performance requirements is vital. Next slide. In a traditional prime subcontractor relationship, only the prime contractor has a contractual relationship with the government procuring agency. This privity of contract imposes significant and contractual obligations on the prime, but also important contractor rights, such as the right to bring a claim against the government under the Contracts Disputes Act. A subcontractor in a traditional prime sub teaming relationship is not a signatory to the prime contract and therefore lacks privity of contract with the procuring agency. And this is, this is typical. They are unable to file claims directly with the procuring agency, and in most cases, procurement officials will not even discuss the contract issues with them. The subcontractor is left to rely on the prime contractor to pass through its claims and or contractual concerns to the government. So, yeah, so that's in a nutshell. You can read that closer when you gain the slides. Responding to the RFP. This is my favorite part. I love the writing part of the RFP. My background is technical, but I've responded to medical and ancillary, heavily to medical and ancillary services, maintenance, construction, like I said, IT, cybersecurity, business and professional services. I run the full gamut of RFPs. And again, of all the hats that I wear in the process, my favorite hat is the technical writer, architect part of it. So here we go. So preparing to respond to a government RFP can be very time consuming and intimidating. If you don't know what's involved or how to best prepare for the proposal writing process, before you start typing out a draft of your government proposal, it's important to get organized, to get things done right in the first place. Consider the following to help you prepare for your government proposal writing process. Responding to the RFP, response review. These are questions that I ask. Is the proposal formatted according to the instructions? Have you presented a plausible solution in the proposal? Is the proposal organized and does it respond to the basic layout requirements? Are all other proposal requirements met? Have you provided an acceptable delivery schedule? Have you demonstrated your capability to perform? How have you demonstrated your related experience or past performance history? Is your financial situation stable? Are you proposing a reasonable price for the project? Are your costing methods credible? Will you need the help of subcontractors? And I don't think I covered this, but one of the things that you don't want to do is provide just, pretty flowery, nonsensical information and that, isn't called for or isn't relevant. And that would be the biggie as far as, and again, not a lot of flower information, and don't give the bottom line, don't provide the government any more than they're asking for unless it's a value add to your response. If there is a part of the contract for which you will need assistance from an outside source, be sure to outline it in your proposal. Don't leave any required RFP sections blank. If you've already dealt with a particular issue elsewhere in the document, say, please see section A, B, other area. Don't assume that the evaluators will have any special knowledge about your business or industry, such as the fact that your company is the oldest or largest, most award-winning contract ever. They won't know anything about you. Use tables, charts, and other graphic elements to summarize information and help the evaluators understand your government proposal or bid. Graphic elements also serve to break up long stretches of time. And again, I said, non-relevant information and flowery text and such are a no-no. You really want to get to the meat of the proposal at all times. Members of the writing team will need to communicate on a regular basis. You may want to hold periodic team meetings to make sure everyone is on track and there are no surprises. You can also review good government RFP examples to prepare your team to write the next government RFP. And if you're a small business, and especially like those that I've typically worked with, I am the team. So you want to have someone on your team or hire someone who understands the capture and the proposal management, the technical architecture of the architecture of the response. That individual or those individuals are your keys to success. Ensure that members of the team understand that all deadlines are firm and remind them that much important work remains after they've finished writing, and that the agency's closing date is absolute. Proposal writing is hard, often tedious work because of the intense concentration required to write well. Your writing team should be given as much help as possible. Provide a proposal outline written in as much detail as possible. The detailed outline will give the writers a structure to help make their written material look as consistent as possible. And this is what I do. Include sections, templates, writing examples, and writing guidelines. So if you know, I'm on a small team, which I typically am, I'm typically working with my subject matter experts or my technical experts. And my experience is, and again, I'm heavily IT cyber, is my technical experts are highly technical, highly technical, but they are not the most interested or best writers. So you want to make sure that you give them as much information as you can to ensure that they do their best writing, or ensure that you draw out of them the best information that you'll need to ensure that you do your best writing. So most successful proposal leaders and writers follow a set of guidelines for writing an outline and conceiving proposal content. And here are some examples. Write a proposal to solve the customer's problems as they perceive them, not how you perceive them. And so that goes in with what I was saying about the flowery information and so. They want you to get straight to the point. Don't try to think for the customer. Give the customer everything asked for in the RFP, down to the most minute details. Write to every solicitation requirement, even if it appears to be meaningless on the surface. Never give them more than they ask for, but always give them what they ask for. Remember, evaluators love to eliminate proposals to save time and effort, or sometimes to help their favorite company. This is what I don't want to confirm or deny that, but this is what I've always heard. Write the outline using topic and subtopic sentences whenever possible. Explain how you will meet each requirement in a clear, concise manner, and explain why you are unique, but only when you can be convincing and then uniqueness stands up to scrutiny. So again, if it's a value add, you want to put that in there. But if it's just something to put in there, something that you've heard of that can be done, that's probably and you've not provided that service or product before, it's probably something you want to steer away from. And differentiate yourself from your competitors. Know your strengths and weaknesses and your competitors' strengths and weaknesses, and write to all 4 of these points. Write the specific benefits of your company, your project team, and your solutions, and substantiate each of these. Don't get caught in the inherent trap that your company is the customer, end all, beat all. Everyone thinks this way, but your confidence means nothing to the customer unless it's backed up with references, performance data, and facts. Acknowledge your weaknesses in relation to the requirements and negate them as much as possible. Proposal content library. Proposal materials can be used over and over again, saving time, but you must methodically tailor it to the proposal you are writing. Avoid being in a last-minute hurry using standard materials without tailoring it. The evaluators will see through this, and 9 times out of 10, you're not going to catch everything, and they will definitely see it. You won't catch everything. So you want to really kind of start with a clean proposal and then add content from your proposal writing libraries, but you want to review it very carefully to ensure that you're not providing information from one proposal to the other. So your proposal library should include your proposal writing books and training materials, corporate qualifications, staff resumes should always be updated and from proposal to proposal, tailored and updated from proposal to proposal, past performance materials and statistics, success stories, value add, that kind of thing, references, model material, including project management approaches, technical description, and chapter introductions, and competitors' proposals obtained from public information requests. So if you go through FOIA and you're able to get someone's proposal, and you often can, you might want to compare what you're proposing to do against what the incumbent an incumbent has provided in the past. Next. So automate the library as much as possible so the writers can move the material electronically. Consider buying proposal writing software, but know of course that it's not it's no substitute for hard work that must be done. I don't recommend it, but it's something that others have used, and I guess they've been successful with it. Use your original GSA solicitation paperwork. You can kind of use that as a start to, let's say if you have a GSA schedule, you can kind of use that as a start for as an add start to your or to add to your library, because you held all of that company information in that initial schedule. You can pull out information about your corporate qualifications, technical portion of the offer, bios, resumes of key personnel, technical portion, and contract-specific business plan. Include your past performance evaluation, technical portion, as well as project descriptions, references, and approaches, and so on and so forth. So use references. So use references used for past performance evaluations. So that would be where your references would come from. And then for approaches, you want to see technical approaches, portions of the offer, and more. Large proposals may require many writers that produce material with different styles, levels of clarity, and consistency. And by sending templates and writing samples to the writers, you help even things out to ensure everyone is on the same page. The following is an example of writing templates. Section title, write a summary of the section. Subsection title, write a simple declaration sentence stating the theme of the subtopic and understanding. Write a background paragraph describing your understanding of the customer's requirements, problems, and be insightful. So this is kind of like a basic information that I would ask of I would provide the section title, subsection title with a basic understanding, and this would be a template for what I would send to my SMEs to fill in the blanks if they can. And for me, because and most of my writing is IT or cyber, or even any of the things, I have an understanding. So this would be something that you do if you're working with, if you're looking for your SMEs to kind of do your writing for you. But I typically, within these sections, I write the paragraphs and then I ask them to edit it. So, or add value add, or check my work, or so on and so forth. But I'm in the habit of just writing the entire thing and saying, this is what I think, what do you think? Next. Solution, and then solution. So write a paragraph describing your solution to the customer's requirement, problems, etc. We want to be creative here. Features, describe the features, elements, aspects, characteristics of your solution, and be clear and concise. Yes. Benefits, describe the specific benefits of your proposed solution to the customer. This is very critical. Provide as much evidence as you can that the benefits will accrue to the customer. And conclusion summary, summarize the subtopics, themes, and accept in a paragraph. And again, these are all considerations that need to be made. But when you have someone who has the ability to, who has a proposal writing, architecture background, all of this information, you should expect that this person can provide the draft template for this, and then start working with your SMEs to clean it up. Next. And then some writing guidelines quickly. Writing a formal logic, so writing guidelines for your proposal team. Write from a logical outline and use topic and subtopic headings is important. Structure the first paragraph in a topic and subtopic so that it presents the primary point first. Summarize every chapter and topic with a brief paragraph. Use trigger words, known facts, statistics, and specific reasons to convince the reader of the primary point. Example, a unique feature, capability, or benefit. These are just kind of normal things that I do. And you want to illustrate as much as possible, but don't provide anything that doesn't make any sense. It should be part of the methodology and the process. Use appendices for detailed material, if any. Next. Do not use big words to impress your customer, and avoid unnecessary words. Big thing. Avoid subjective adjectives that sound boastful, and be specific. Avoid long sentences, long-winded discussions in general, and keep your paragraphs concise and short. Help solution writers in a clear and concise help solution writers to write in as clear and concise a style as they are capable of. And that, again, the more information that you can provide your solutions writers or your SMEs, the better the end product is going to be, because, you know, they 9 times out of 10 they have a job, or they have they have other work, and you really don't want to take too much of their time responding to RFPs. That's a corporate function that should be done. So when you're lucky enough to have a SME in your environment that has an understanding of the technical requirement, you want to make sure that you're considerate of their time, and you do a lot of the research that that they would have to do. You go ahead and do the research for them and present it to them, and then again, you're at the point where this is what I put together. What do you think? Logically, okay, so give the section writers templates and an example of a well-written section to follow that is easy to read and understand. Use topic sentences, short paragraphs, no extra words, and simple declarative sentences. Develop a technical proposal that is clear and concise and describing exactly how you will meet the requirements stated in the RFP, and make it as easy as possible on the evaluators who have a big pile of proposals to read. So you want to make it clean, easy, and logical. Is that it?
Yes, we have reached the end.
Oh, wow.
So we do have a few questions. I know we have 4 minutes. Thank you, Gina, for all of this. I know this was a lot of information. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot from it today. But I want to touch on 2 questions because we received the same question multiple times. So for the participants, if you saw that I said answer verbally, it's because we're getting ready to answer it verbally. The first question is, where, if for example, they don't have a library of proposals, where can they find some examples of proposals?
That's a hard one, because your library is typically includes your own proposals. So those that you've developed yourself. So even if you're on a team, sometimes you're in a teaming situation, the teaming partner won't even give you a copy of the proposal. They'll ask you for information to include in the proposal, but you don't even get that copy of the proposal. So it's typically something in-house, or you run into somebody like me who has a whole bunch of them. And I come into your environment, and part of my duties and responsibilities is to build a proposal library. So I do that. And in addition to, proposals that are out there, I didn't cover it. Again, I kind of put this together from a huge a manual that I put together. But, typically in that proposal library, you're going to have your quality assurance plans, your risk assessment plan, your staffing plan, your recruitment plans, your management plans. All of those things are going to be in your proposal library too. So all of that information is going to come from, past work. That they're all typically called for in the basic RFPs. So it's going to come from past work. Or again, if you have someone who comes into your environment who's able to kind of, build your library, because they have the knowledge to put together a management plan that's specific to your organization, utilizing, prior plans or knowledge or whatever, you can get it that way. But typically it's built from the information that comes out of your company. If you hire someone, if you hire someone and you're in need of that, you would also want to ask them what kind of documentation or knowledge do they have to build your proposal library. That would be a great question to ask.
And another question we have is, how, if they don't have anyone on their staff, how can they find proposal writers? Do they just go to a search engine and type in proposal writers and maybe do their due diligence with making sure that they are working with, a company or individual that is able to correctly write the proposals for them?
That's a really good question, and I've addressed this before. Okay, so typically on the proposal team, you have your proposal manager, and the proposal manager is responsible for management of the proposal, from cradle to grave, from, the time that you get it through submission. So that's what their responsibilities are. The proposal manager typically goes to the subject matter experts and the technical writer, if you have one, to do the writing, and then that's the technical writing. And then architecture is if if it's an ID contract and they're asking you for DegSecOps methodologies or processes, your technical writer or your technical architect should be able to do that too. So if you're looking for someone to do, not to just, manage the process of getting your proposal from A to Z, you're looking for them to actually write it, or do the architecture of it. You would just have to, again, I would look for, my keyword would probably be technical writer, architect, definitely not proposal manager. There's not anyone else in the proposal team that, should or would be able to do that. So you'd go for technical writer. But I like to say too that I personally don't know how anyone can respond to a contract, do the writing and the architecture of a contract without having been involved in capture manager. If I had a capture manager, if I have a capture manager on my team, capture manager to be able to write, because you've researched, the capture manager has developed all of that information about the client or the company, and then that information is handed off to a technical writer or an architect. It's always best if, but I don't think that you can do, you can write without implementing the processes or the requirements of a capture person. So whenever I've never specifically applied for a technical writer or technical architect job. I've always myself out there as a proposal manager, capture manager who happens to write and who happens to write an architect. So, you just got to be careful about when you're reviewing the resumes. You just want to ask them, what's your writing experience? And, can you put this, if I give you a proposal, can you put this thing together, for my subject matter experts to review what you put together to ensure that it's logical or compliant? And the answer should be yes. So if you have a technical writer, you want that person to be able to put that full RFP together and also build your proposal library.
Thank you so much for this, Gina. I know we're 2 minutes over. Thank you, everyone that has stayed and remained on the call for the information. Just to address the Q&A, I will be reviewing the Q&A. Please allow me up until next week. The reason I'm asking until next week is because we have experienced a few technical issues with gaining access to our reports. So please allow me up until next week to respond to any questions that we did not respond to. Back to you, Gina. I want to say thank you for presenting this information to the participants today. Gina's contact information is included on the slides. Again, the presentation and a copy of, the recording and a copy of the presentation will be emailed to everyone by tomorrow morning, barring any issues, any IT issues that we experienced like about a week or two ago. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Gina, do you have any last words for the participants before this session concludes?
I have no questions. I'm always excited to work with, veterans in any capacity. So if there is any questions or support or information that I can provide to anyone, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will, in addition to the questions that are that the OSDBU will be answering, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have as well.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.